My friends, good day. The European Union's chat control project, even China wouldn't have dared to do that. By the way, it seems the Chinese are watching the innovations in the surveillance society developing in Europe, and they might even learn from it. So let me tell you the story. In 2022, during the grim times of COVID, the European Union came up with an absolutely diabolical idea to monitor Europeans' phones in real time. This idea was recently revived by the Danish presidency of the European Union, and it will be put to a vote in October 2025. So today, the European Union tells us that things are moving forward a bit in a scattered way. That means we're being told that Germany is hesitating, and Poland, Austria, and the Netherlands potentially disagree. But in reality, it's just to soften things up a bit. The resistance, which is completely symbolic from the Europeans aren't resisting at all, but still, they're trying a little to muddy the waters by saying, yeah, it probably won't happen because they're not all in agreement. But you'll see, it's something very serious. So let me tell you, Europe wants to move toward a system of total global constant surveillance of those living on the European continent. So in this context, they had a little problem. Before, they used to monitor through the network, monitor network traffic. The problem is that today, network traffic is encrypted even without using a VPN. But a lot of people use a VPN on top of that, so it adds a double layer. So the network is pointless to try from there. So what do? We want to force the operators. That's the second method, forcing the operators to cooperate. For example, they arrested Pavel Durov from Telegram in France because they wanted to force him to cooperate to give them the content of the conversations they were targeting. They force Apple, they want to force Google, they want to force Intel, that's it. But for them, that's not a long-term solution. It's not a sustainable solution. Why? Because tomorrow another operator could show up, but they'll just force them again. And to be honest, that's below their ambitions, because their ambitions aren't just to monitor this or that person. It's to monitor 100% of the population, 100% of the time. So at that point, what did they come up with? The idea is to have a hidden app installed on every phone sold in the European Union, an app that can't be controlled by the user. It will be part of the operating system and will scan the screen in real time. That means if you're typing a text, sending a message in a messenger app, on a private site, in a forum, on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever you're doing, as soon as you're typing a message, the application scans your screen and reads the message before it goes out onto the network. So there's no need for anything else. They don't care about the VPN or whether this or that person collaborates, right? It doesn't matter if the applications cooperate or not. That's not important. Here they have direct access to the screen. So of course, if you want, the excuse they gave is that they want to protect children, because they start from the principle, right? On a civilizational level, they start from the principle that all Europeans are potential child predators. And fortunately, thank God, there's the state watching them in real time to prevent them from giving in to their base instincts. So, of course, you realize that this is, how should I put it, a kind of moral manipulation, quite simply. That means, just to tell you, if you're against it, either you have something to feel guilty about on that front, right? You feel guilty, or you're heartless and you don't want to protect the children. One or the other, you choose. It's a pretty classic technique. Afterwards, what's going to happen is that we'll move towards a proliferation. We'll move towards an increase, a broadening of the mandate. That means that, well, once we have a platform for survival surveillance, what are we going to do with it? At first, it will be for the children. Then, of course, terrorism. Are we going to let terrorists act without scanning what they're doing? So terrorism. Then maybe we'll look for xenophobia, racism, hateful posts. Maybe we'll look for climate information. Maybe we'll look for extramarital affairs. Then we'll start scanning for anything and everything. And after that, will we end up with a screen that's scanned in real time? Now, something else. You should know that the European Union is becoming more and more bureaucratic, more and more behind in terms of civilization. These are choices that have been made. It's not by chance. When you look at, I don't know, climate masochism, for example, there's deindustrialization. Industries are leaving, creators are leaving, investments are leaving. All the flows of creation of intellectual property, all of that, carefully avoid Europe, while Europe is there generating bureaucrats and laws and regulations. So, for example, the European Union doesn't have a cloud system. When we think about the cloud today, what do we think of? We think of Azure, that's from Microsoft. We think of AWS, that's from Amazon. We think of GCP, that's from Google. So there are only American cloud providers. So it's the same for AI. Europe doesn't have AI, but it's the continent where AI is the most regulated. So what's happening is that once this data is captured on the screens, it will be sent to an American cloud. Of course, there, AI will inspect them. So there will be algorithmic surveillance of Europeans who will have to be careful about what they say when they use their phones. Making a meme among friends, even private conversations, they'll have to be extremely careful. It could fall under the law, it could be sent to the tax authorities, it could be sent to the police, it could be sent to anyone, it could be sent to the city hall, it could be shared. Okay? So it will go to American clouds and it will be analyzed by American algorithms and AIs. That's it. Here, we're literally in a logic of outsourcing surveillance. So once we get to that point, I'm going to add something else for you. Once you know the rat, you know which direction it's going to go. Afterwards, they'll say, yeah, but people are using their computer screens now. That means people are wary of their smartphone screens and they're using their computers. So what are we going to do? For monitoring, it's the same, to protect the children. What we're going to do is we'll have to expand the mechanism and start scanning computer screens, tablets, and maybe even TVs. We scan in real time, we scan everything. We send it to the cloud, analyze it, and watch. So tomorrow you could have grandparents taking a picture of their grandchildren at the beach. Bam! It goes to the police. You could have a mom taking a picture of her baby to share with the pediatrician. Bam! To the police, right? So here I'm going to say, there you go, we're being watched, we're going to accept real-time surveillance. Something else? Once this system is in place, of course, there will be plenty of hackers or other foreign nations who will say, hey, this is an opportunity, it's an attack surface. We can look for ways to hijack this system, how to get into it remotely, all that, to try to monitor. And we could end up with screens, computer screens, smartphones, tablets, where there's no more, it's hard to keep a secret in Europe, where everything people do on screens, there's no more intellectual secret, no more intellectual property, no more manufacturing secret, no more financial secret, there's nothing left. It's constantly monitored. So you can see that this is heading toward tyrannical control. Let me tell you something. In 2022, during the grim time of COVID, this story or this idea came up because you need to know one thing. The first thing I'm going to tell you about this is that the so-called liberal democracies, I mean the United Kingdom, France, Germany, these are the countries that lost the most during the COVID era. And I'll tell you why. Because the countries that are ruled by tyranny every day, by the will of a prince, by a president for life, by a dictator, all of that, these countries, in the end for them, the whole COVID story was just business as usual, as we say in English. It was just, well, that's it. We just applied it. We applied coercion. We applied it in a health context. Then, well, the health context went away. But the coercion, it was just like before. Nothing changed. But the so-called liberal democracies, once they got a taste of tyranny, a taste of arbitrariness, of the extrajudicial, when they had this where you have a minister or a prime minister who sends out a tweet giving an order to the population and the police respond by saying, this order is now law and we will enforce it. That's not democracy. A minister's opinion is not a law. The police are not there to defend the opinions and orders of politicians. Politicians aren't supposed to give orders to the population in a democracy, right? But indeed, in a country under tyranny, the order of anyone connected to the police or the army or politics or whatever, well, serves as law. And so that taste. Tyranny, well, today we realize that it's still there, that COVID is gone, but that's still there. So what happens is we're afraid because the reality is what? It's control. But why control? Because they're afraid the population will rise up one day because the European population has been betrayed They are being pushed more and more into poverty in a world that is changing, in a world that is prospering. Americans today make fun of Europeans by saying, sometimes you see tweets with 60,000 likes where people say, I just realized how much Europeans get paid. They're in shock. That's impossible. How do they handle it? They're shocked. Some say, I just realized that Europeans don't have air conditioning, but how do these people live? More and more, Europe is starting to be seen as the new third world in a way. So there's the destruction of families, destruction of schools, destruction of the economy. It's full spectrum dominance, as they say in the military. It's domination of the land, the sea, the sky, everywhere, wherever you look, it's being destroyed. It's not inevitable. It's not an accident. It's not something inevitable. No. It's a choice that was made by the European elites to destroy everything. What are they afraid of? That the people will rise up one day? Because they're afraid the people will rise up? They're preparing means of surveillance and coercion. Because all of this, of course, with digital identity, with the digital euro, with total surveillance, you can imagine where this is going. You have to take pieces of the puzzle and disconnect them from each other. One day, we can disconnect. One day, an algorithm will disconnect you. And when it disconnects you, your driver's license will no longer be valid. Your passport won't be valid. Potentially, you want to start your car. It will refuse to start. Actually, to be honest, Europeans won't have cars in the coming years. You know it's forbidden. You know it's forbidden. The European Union will ban them in 2035. By 2035, the United Kingdom, which is in a much deeper climate masochism, will ban them in 2030, so in 4.5 years. So quite soon, Europeans will only go where their feet can take them, either by pedaling or by walking. Well, that's it. It's as simple as that. So you can imagine towards what tyrannical world they are leading them, because these people are going to wake up at some point. They're going to rise up. They're going to say, what's being done to us is just not possible. That's it. And one very important thing. I'll just show you my book, The Great Betrayals. I'd like to read you the first sentence of the book. Just the first sentence, that's all. I'm not going to read you 3 pages. First sentence in the preface. Not incompetence. It can't be incompetence. The accident theory, although appealing to those who seek simple answers, doesn't hold up either. It's a systematic destruction, my friends. It's civilizational demolition. It's sabotage. The pillars of European civilization are being demolished, blown up. So they say to themselves, the people will wake up at some point. If they wake up, we need surveillance and coercion methods so we can deactivate them remotely. That's it. Now, I'm going to tell you something. They are seriously mistaken. Why? Because there have been revolutions in the past. Great revolutions, thank you. Crowned heads have fallen, states have been overthrown, thank you. Leaders have been chased out or caught, punished, judged, haven't they? Well, those were times when there wasn't even a telephone. There was no television, there was no radio, there was no internet. So with their acute spy mania, well, that's it. They're going to spy. But the day people reach their breaking point, well, that'll be it. It'll go very fast. There you go, my friends. Anyway, thank you for watching this video up to this point. And while you make your bed, you lie in it. I mean, people for the most part are in favor of the European Union as I see it. Well, that's how it is. That's how it is. It's going to drive them to ruin while keeping an eye on them. That's it. That way, when they're eating from their bowl, well, there will be cameras pointed at them, they'll be under surveillance, and then we know he ate from the bowl today. That's all. It won't go any further. You know, remember those countries, some African countries where you have children who are poorly dressed and all that. They look miserable, they're skinny and everything, but they have weapons. These are countries where people can afford to buy weapons, but can't afford to pay for schools or clinics or other things, or even to feed themselves. Europe is going to slip into that. That means we're going to see Europeans. The average European will live in the cold. He will be in misery. He won't be able to afford heating. It will even be forbidden to install heating, air conditioning, hot water, an oven, to have a car, etc. He will be completely ruined. But at the same time, when he opens the door, there will be 10 cameras pointing at him. The slightest conversation will be scanned. We might even have vans driving by with radars, with scanners that scan through the wall. It's madness. It will just be a surveillance society. People living in misery and others watching them. The book The Great Betrayals is available on Amazon. See you very soon.